We welcome you to another live edition of the Sports Box, brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hammonton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And by our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and check them out at www.crowdplayapp.com for details. Ladies and gentlemen, it's showtime.
Welcome everybody to our, every week Friday night show, the Sweet Tea. I'm joined by Noah Dog Deibler and myself, Garth Charger Patrick. We're here. We're super excited, guys. We're only just under a week out from the NFL draft. I know I'm excited to be here. Pretty safe to say that you're pretty excited too, Noah, having that number 4 overall pick. But yeah, guys, with everything that's happening in sports, we're going to get right to it. We're going to cut to the chase. We're going to talk some NFL and specifically some NFL draft here tonight. Glad to have you, Noah.
Great to be here, man. I'm really excited for this one. Always love the NFL draft. You got to love it even more when you're picking number 4. I'm really excited to talk about it.
Yeah, and without further ado, guys, let's go ahead and let's jump right into this. As we all know, NFL draft is next Thursday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. My understanding is there are going to be some players in attendance, Noah. Others opting to stay at home, but it is pretty cool that the option's there that, if they feel comfortable, if they do want to be there in person, they can attend. And I saw something, a little bit cool today that I guess Roger Goodell went out and did get the COVID vaccine. He has had both, doses of that. So he is, and they kind of poked a little bit fun at it. He is able to hug players on stage, the ones that do show up and get selected. So, that's pretty cool just to me that there is, that option, Noah.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. And, the past few years has been so crazy. I remember yesterday when we were watching that draft and it was pretty much completely virtual. They had the fan cams and everything. The fact we're a year later and, I'm just glad that, like you said, a few people can go to attend the draft in person. It's in Cleveland, Ohio, obviously big football town. The Browns fans are nice and passionate. It's not that far away from Canton where the Pro Football Hall of Fame is as well. So I expect a decent turnout. I think that's a solid venue to host at, and obviously it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, most definitely. Going to go ahead and throw up our first comment of the night. Josh here. Glad to have you here, buddy. As always, we love having, all our sport life guys and all of our good friends in here. But yeah, Noah, like you said right there, not too far out of Canton, big football town, obviously, Ohio, between the Browns and Ohio State, they love their football there. But yeah, like you said, on one hand, it feels like it was yesterday, and on the other hand, it kind of feels like it's already been an eternity since, we had that draft with Roger Goodell, in the living room scene, fan cams, as you said. And, we got to see people's reactions from their home and players also being at home, so we're obviously going to have some of that same feel this season or rather next week, unfortunately. But, we're making progress. We're making steps. So, each day we're getting a little bit closer back to, what we're so accustomed to and, what you would call usual life.
Yeah, and I think, last year they made the most out of what was, a terrible situation. I thought they did a pretty good job, actually, for, such short notice. It was only about a month after the whole, lockdown started, pretty much. Like you said, this year, I think it'll be pretty similar to that, but it should be a little more normal. It's still not going to be the same, obviously, but I'm still going to enjoy it a lot. NFL draft's one of my favorite parts of the league calendar every year.
Yeah, most definitely. Before we jump into some mock drafts, our big predictions, players that we like most in this draft, all that kind of stuff, guys, I thought it'd be really cool. I kind of thought of this on the spot right before the show. I found this list the NFL put together recently on the top. Obviously that number 1 draft pick is always, even with it pretty much being a lock with Trevor Lawrence this year, that number 1 overall draft pick always draws the most attention. It's the most talked about. It's every guy's dream, not only to make the draft, but, definitely to go number 1 overall, even if it isn't really to the best team. As it's pretty obvious the best team in the league is not picking number 1 overall unless they give up, a ton to trade up. But they put together this list of the top number 1 overall draft picks of all time in the common draft area, which if you guys didn't know, there's been 52 of them. I'm not going to go ahead and jump, throw the number 1 guy that they ranked. Obviously, this is up for debate. This is, opinion. But I'll go ahead and start with number 5, Noah. And who
Mhm.
they have at 5 is Troy Aikman, who was drafted in 1989, as we all know, to the Dallas Cowboys. Hall of Fame career, won some Super Bowls. Had a great supporting cast around him, no doubt. A great coach as well. But by no means do I think that that number 5 spot is not justified. He's not worthy of it. I don't really have too much argument there, Noah. I think maybe you could make the argument to move him back a spot or two. But like I said, I have no issues with him being at 5.
It's very interesting, Garth. I'm just looking at, I got to pick a list of all the number one overall draft picks going, back quite a ways. And just looking at it, you see so many Hall of Famers on this list, Garth, so many great players. Um, I wouldn't say he's undeserving of being on the list, but, as you go over it and we'll go through the list, I'm interested to see who's actually on here because there's a lot of great players here, Garth. And, I could argue a lot of these could be over Troy Aikman, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, and one guy that our friend Mikey would argue who they got right behind him is O.J. Simpson at number 6. I could see putting him ahead of him. I feel like everybody knows him obviously for what they know him for, but man, he was a great football player and he had a hell of a career up there in Buffalo. But one thing cool that I'm looking at here real quick is that Troy Aikman was actually the first ever draft pick by the tandem of Jimmy Johnson and Jerry Jones. He started his career with 11 straight losses, and he would eventually start and win 3 Super Bowls. He also had 11-5 playoff record in the process. So, by no means a terrible player. I think kind of, he falls into that same argument, that same ideology of Emmitt Smith to where, we don't say they're not good players. We give them the respect they're due. But we do feel like, maybe the team around them, the supporting cast, the coaching that they had definitely had, huge, huge benefits to their career and longevity for sure.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think anyone would say, Troy Aikman was a terrible quarterback or anything. I think he was, a pretty good quarterback. But like you said, Jimmy Johnson, one of the greatest coaches we've ever seen for that run he had with the Dallas Cowboys. They won a Super Bowl even after he left. That's how great he built that team. I believe Barry Switzer was the guy who won after he left. But, I mean, Hall of Famers on the offensive line. You mentioned Emmitt Smith, absolutely incredible running back, one of the best of all time. I can think of guys like Charles Haley, Deion Sanders on the defense as well. Just some great teams, man. And, he did his part. But definitely, fantastic teams there in the 1990s for Dallas.
Yeah, that offensive line unit, if not the best of all time, is definitely very, very high up on that list.
Yep.
Emmitt being my guy, like Emmitt, you guys didn't know, Florida Gator. I love him for that reason, but I will, all bias aside, say that playing for the teams that he played for there in Dallas, greatly, greatly helped his career. It wasn't all on him by any means. But keeping this going, Noah, moving up to number 4. And this one I feel like actually might draw a little bit more controversy and debate than, the guy we just went over. At number 4, they've got Terry Bradshaw, drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously. He got a Super Bowl as well. Looking here, I believe he won. Was it just one, Noah?
What did he win? What are you asking?
If he just had the one Super Bowl win, I'm trying to look this up real
No,
quick.
no, he won 4. He won 4 Super
4?
Bowls. Yeah.
Okay, so he had one more than Aikman. But I think at least from what I've heard among the sports community, Terry Bradshaw is a very love or hate type guy. I feel like you have a lot of guys who will say that he is, Hall of Fame worthy, one of the best to ever do it. And you have a lot of guys who say, well, if you really look at his numbers, he wasn't all that good and, probably benefited from, the situation he was in. The Steelers defenses were, phenomenal. They were really good. They didn't call him the Steel Curtain for no reason, guys, there in Pittsburgh. But, he won when it mattered. He won Super Bowls, Noah. And I think that goes a long way to why they probably have him at the number 4 spot.
I think you're spot on, Garth. I think this, from what I've heard from these 2 players, I think this list is number 1 picks who've had the best careers, not, the 5 best number 1 overall picks. Because like I said, I have the list up here. I'm just looking over it right now. I see a lot of talented quarterbacks and players overall on this list that, in my opinion, I would place above both Aikman and Bradshaw. You already said OJ Simpson's out. There's going to be some good players being left out of this, Garth, that in my opinion would probably be more deserving. Maybe we can go over our top fives once you're done going through this list.
Yeah, most definitely. And I can't really see anything specifically where it lists or criteria or anything like that. But I would definitely have to agree. I would say that this is a top list of best careers, not most talented or overall greatest players.
Yeah.
Let's keep it rolling because we still got the draft to get to, and like you said, we're gonna kind of give our opinions as to who ours would be. Number 3, John Elway. I feel like this one, probably has a little bit less debate, a little less, doubt that he belongs here. Elway, I hate the Broncos, divisional rivals. Never am going to be a fan of the Broncos, obviously, for that reason alone. But absolutely fantastic quarterback. They're saying here that you could make the argument that he even belongs higher. And here's something actually that they mentioned. I'm glad because I wouldn't have thought about it. They're talking about how he never actually played it down for the team that originally drafted him. He drafted in Baltimore and ended up in Denver. But yeah, just I can't really say enough about the guy. He just was a phenomenal quarterback.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. And he is who I would guess would have been one of the 3 left. I'm 99% sure I know who the other 2 are now. But yeah, obviously a great player. Coming out of Stanford, Garth, I think he was one of the most hyped NFL prospects we have ever seen. And obviously he got the 2 Super Bowls to back it up. He won the Super Bowl MVP, was an NFL MVP, of 2004 Hall of Famer, 9 Pro Bowls. He's near the top of pretty much every passing accolade you could have. So, yeah, no problems with this pick here, Garth.
Yeah, so we're in agreement there. Moving it up to the number 2 pick, Noah, and I will say that I'm really, really I love this pick. I'm not gonna lie because I love the specific player. He's one growing up learning about football. I used to watch a lot of the I forget exactly what they're called. They're on the NFL Network. They basically, highlighted old school players that we wouldn't have got to see growing up, and kind of went over their college days and their NFL and a little bit behind the scenes of them. And that's Bruce Smith for the Buffalo Bills, drafted in 1985. This guy was unreal, Noah. 2 things that I, vividly remember about that. Well, I don't remember them watching live, but, learning about him, watching highlights, that kind of stuff is I believe it was Boomer Esiason. Could be wrong on the exact quarterback, but they were playing the Jets for sure, for certain. He sacked the quarterback, hit him so hard that the quarterback literally just laid, motionless on the ground for a minute or two. Wasn't a dirty hit, was just, a nice, clean, hard hit. And everybody was like, is this guy okay? Like, did we just witness Bruce Smith kill this guy? And other than that, just, how phenomenal he was at sacks. Just looking over the list real quick, Noah, he does lead the league all-time in sacks at 200. Reggie White, another phenomenal, great defensive end of all time at 198. And then after that, it's not even close. It goes all the way down to Kevin Green at 160 and just, drops off more after that. So I can't argue. I think he's, you might move him around a little bit, but he's got to be in your top 5 all time.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. And, I'm pretty sure I know who number 1 is now that you've said him. But, obviously a fantastic pick. He'd be in my top 5 as well when we go over that. Like you said, NFL career sack leader, Garth. 8 times first team All Pro, 2 times NFL Defensive Player of the Year, 11 Pro Bowls. He made multiple All Decade teams. Just a fantastic player, Garth. Absolutely no one can make an argument against him. Probably, in my opinion, the second best defensive end of all time. I think Reggie White was just so dominant. But for, if you're talking about career, Garth, longevity, consistency, he's number 1.
Yeah, I gotta agree there, Noah. And like you said, I probably would put Reggie White just slightly above him for all-time defensive ends. He's probably just overall, a more complete defensive end, where Bruce Smith was more of just this absolutely dominating sack machine. But yeah, we both agree with that pick. Number 1, which should come to nobody's surprise, obviously Peyton Manning to the Indianapolis Colts in 1998. I mean, you could go on and on about this guy all night. Just my personal opinion on him is he, by no means is the most talented player ever to play the position, but in my opinion, he's the most intelligent player ever to play the quarterback position. just his gift for the game, his IQ, reading and dissecting defenses is just second to none, and that's what allowed him to have so much success in the league. His preparation week in, week out, and even much like we're seeing with Tom Brady, when he got to be up there in age, when his arm just wasn't there anymore, he could still make up for it pretty well with the fact that he was still just the mind was there. The mind never went away. I'm like I said, I could go on all night about how great Peyton Manning was. One of my favorite players.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. I've said multiple times, I think he's the smartest quarterback I've ever seen play the game. He's not the best quarterback, in my opinion. I think there's a few that are a little better, but he's still top five. And, what he could do just dissecting a defense, just pure analysis and, the sheriff, as they called him, because when he's on the field, he could, dissect the defense like it was nothing. He did it better than anybody. Definitely the smartest quarterback I've ever seen. Obviously, he had pretty much all the passing records until Drew Brees passed some of them. But yeah, I mean, he's number one in my opinion. I'm not sure if it's particularly close either. He's just one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. And I know we mentioned John Elway, who was a massive prospect coming out. I think Peyton might have even eclipsed that because we had that whole Peyton Manning, Ryan Leaf conversation, and now we see that's obviously not a conversation at all. But that race between those two is one of the biggest draft stories I can think of all time. And obviously, unfortunately for Ryan Leaf, didn't work out for him. But Peyton Manning, he showed he was that and then some. So no one who knows anything about football would really argue against that.
Yeah, and I'm looking through the list, scrolling through, can have some number one overall draft picks of all time. As I'm going to kind of give my opinion here, Noah, on who I think would be in my top 5 list. And I'm not gonna put them in order, Noah. I think I would take much more thought, much more analysis to for sure rank them 1 through 5. But I got to say, obviously Peyton Manning's got to be on there, and he's for sure probably got to be in my top 2. Looking through the list here, as I said, O.J. Simpson. And before I go any further, guys, keep in mind how I'm ranking my top 5 ever. I'm going purely off of talent and skill. I'm not, using stats. I'm not using career longevity records, anything like that. Just purely, I think, was the most talented.
Yes, I'll do the same. I'll do the same as well.
One guy here, like I said, purely going off of talent, I got to have Michael Vick in my top 5 for sure. As we all know, we had the controversy. He maybe didn't live up to all of our expectations, but the talent, was unreal. We saw it in college and we saw it in the NFL as well. O.J. Simpson, I forgot. I'm pretty sure I listed him. So I'm at 3. Here's an interesting one. And I feel like he might have to make my list, Noah, just because looking at the names, and I could be wrong, but looking at the names just real quickly, I feel like he's probably the best number 1 overall offensive lineman drafted. Unless Anthony Munoz went first, or number 1, I mean. Because I feel like I played that for some reason.
I know absolutely who you're talking about. He's actually one of the 4 guys I've got to mention that I think got left out of this. And I believe you were talking about Orlando Pace.
You, sir, are correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, Garth, because obviously we know, and like you said, I think Anthony Munoz is the best, not only left tackle, but best lineman of all time. But it's a very unglamorous position, Garth. I think that's probably why it got left out. When you look at a guy like Orlando Pace, I mean, he made 7 straight Pro Bowls, Garth. Obviously, he was a big part of that Greatest Show on Turf Rams team. And, you talk about guys, obviously, like Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce. You forget about that absolute mammoth tackle they had, Garth, just holding down the offensive line. I mean, 3 times first-team All-Pro. He made the 2000s All-Decade team. Obviously, he made the Hall of Fame. He's in the College and Pro Football Hall of Fames. Got left off this list. So that is one of the 4 guys I had down that I think might have been a bit more deserving than guys like Terry Bradshaw and Troy Aikman, in my opinion.
Yeah, most definitely. So just a real quick recap here. I've got Peyton Manning, O.J. Simpson, now Orlando Pace, Michael Vick. So that only leaves me with 1. And I think with only 1 left already on my list, I feel like I got to include Bruce Smith. Like I said, I absolutely love that guy. And as we all know, that talent converted to a lot of sacks for those Buffalo Bills teams.
Absolutely. And so is that your list, Garth?
Yeah, that is.
You,
There's one guy that I did really want to include, and he just kind of missed out on that. Looking at these guys was Bo Jackson, because as we all know, that dude was absolutely, physically gifted in multiple sports, not just football.
yeah, maybe if he had a career, Garth, but obviously, shortened by injury.
But yeah, that would be my top five. And as I said, in no particular order, guys, I would need much more, time to think that out and put a lot of, analysis behind it.
Yeah, I feel you, Garth. And, I guess I'll just go get into mine. I think the top three, I don't think anyone really argues with them. I think you've got to have John Elway, Bruce Smith, and Peyton Manning. Where it gets tough for me, Garth, and, like I said, I think Terry Bradshaw and Troy Aikman, don't get me wrong, I think they were good players, obviously both Hall of Famers, but I think if you're doing top five players based on talent of all time, I don't think they get in. And I mentioned Orlando Pace. He's kind of an honorable mention for me because when I look at these other players, I think there's two more that just sneak it in for me over him. I just want to give another honorable mention as well to Earl Campbell, who is another fantastic running back. I think he needs a shout. 3 times first team All Pro. This is a guy doesn't have the flashy stats. Garth, his career wasn't very long. He only played from 1978 to 85. But when he was playing, I mean, this is a guy that won an MVP as a running back, Garth. That's not very common. 3 straight Offensive Player of the Year awards. Got to give a big shout out to Earl Campbell, Garth. 5, 1,000-yard seasons. He almost had a 2,000-yard season as well. Touchdown machine. I mean, great player here, Garth. But
yeah, if you guys want to talk about somebody who ran the ball physically and wanted to run people over, he definitely.
Oh my God. Yeah, no kidding, Garth. I mean, it was just you got to feel bad for those, defenders just having to deal with a guy like that. But unfortunately for me, or unfortunately for him, he just barely misses out on my top 5. But that's only because these other 2 players are just absolutely incredible. Like you said, I'm not going to be ordering these in a specific order, but my 4th guy would be O.J. Simpson, as you said. I mean, we all know what he is. He's let's not get into that. But as a pure football player, Garth, another MVP, 5 times first team All Pro. In that era of the 1970s, Garth, he was the best running back. I don't think anyone was close. Just an absolutely phenomenal player. He gets in my top 5. And my last pick, Garth, and this is throwing it back, way back. And, a lot of people might not even know who this guy is. And, looking at it, I'm honestly stunned that he hasn't even been mentioned yet. Wasn't in any of the, that list or anything. He wasn't in your list. He has an award in college football named after, giving him to one of the best defenders. He was a 10 times first team All Pro, 2 times NFL champion, 8 times Pro Bowl. He played back in the 1950s predominantly. He's no longer alive, unfortunately, but he made the College and Pro Football Hall of Fame. He even served in the Army. Do you know who I'm talking about, Garth?
I believe, I will say I'm not an expert on remembering college football trophy names, but I do believe in it. It's my only guess. It's got to be Chuck Bednarik.
Right on, Garth. I mean, this guy has an actual, defense award named after him. Like I said, I mean, for that era of the 50s, 10 times first team All Pro, Garth, 8 times Pro Bowl. He won, the NFL championships. He's on the anniversary all time teams, which is a very exclusive list, Garth. Made the 1950s all decade team. Now, I understand why he's not on there. He played a very long time ago. It's kind of hard to, judge him compared to modern players, but I mean, his legacy is kind of hard to doubt, considering how present he still is, even though this was, you know, 70 years ago now. So I'd say Chuck Bednarik probably gets into my top 5 as well.
Yeah, and honestly, I kind of just scrolled through that long list very quickly. So I very well could have missed his name on there. But the only reason I didn't mention him is I didn't realize that he was a number 1 overall draft pick. But like you said, that guy was phenomenal. Obviously, you don't get an award named after you if you're just, some Joe Schmo on the defensive side of the ball. And with football, usually we remember the offensive players or give them a little bit more credit, a little bit more hype than defense. So, if you have an award named after you as a defensive player, you're doing something right. Um, but yeah, with that said, Noah, because we still got a long ways to go tonight, let's go ahead and let's jump right into some draft coverage. Real quick before we do start going over picks, our predictions, all that kind of stuff, I do want to talk about this Orlando Brown trade. The Ravens did finally deal Orlando Brown today, earlier on, to the Chiefs, who desperately needed help at the tackle position, and landing potentially a franchise type guy to hold it down at the left tackle offensive position is, going to be huge. They had to give up, I believe, I know they gave up the first round, I believe a third and a fourth round as well. Probably some other stuff in there I'm forgetting, but they had to give up quite a bit of picks regardless. It's kind of what I'm getting at there. My biggest thing, and I mentioned it to you earlier, Noah, on a post, is I'm really curious to see what happens on the player side of this, because I know the Chargers, back when the hype was really high and everybody's like, hey, what's going to go on with this guy? Who's trading for him? The Ravens going to keep him. My Chargers were one of the teams that was interested in talk. So, I was following the situation very closely, as we do need a left tackle desperately. And everything that I was finding, the reason why the Ravens, hadn't dealt him isn't because they couldn't find somebody that wanted to trade for him. It was the fact that I guess he was saying stuff like, wherever he goes, he wants a new contract. He wants to be the highest paid left tackle in the league. We kind of gave our thoughts and opinions on that, I believe, last week's show. But that's what I'm curious to see. I think it's a great pickup for the Chiefs. Unfortunately, going to make football a little bit harder for my Chargers. But yeah, we're going to have to see what happens in turn. Is he just going to stay under contract? Is he going to demand a new contract? What's going to go on there? And if the Chiefs do have to pay him a lot, no, that's going to really, really hurt that cap situation, as they've already got Patrick Mahomes on a monster deal.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Obviously we've talked about Orlando Brown Jr. quite a lot over the past few weeks now. This whole, is he going to get traded, is he not, saga can finally come to a close. I got the trade details up here. So the Ravens, they get 3 picks for next week's NFL draft. In the first rounder, which is number 31, they have a third, number 94, a fourth, number 136, and they also get a 5th rounder in 2022. For that, obviously, they ship Orlando Brown Jr. to the Kansas City Chiefs. They also gave the Chiefs, I believe, a 2nd rounder for this year, which is number 58, and a 6th rounder in 2022. So, in my opinion, Garth, the Ravens traded a lineman that they couldn't afford to pay, didn't really want to be there, to a team that needed the offensive line help desperately, because their tackles in that Super Bowl, once they, I believe the starters got hurt, their backups were obviously very bad in that game. They lost the game because they lost line of scrimmage. They want to shore up that offensive line for Patrick Mahomes. They're also getting their other tackle, I believe it is, Laurent Duvernay-Tardif, back, because he opted out last year, because obviously we all know he's a doctor and all that. So he was trying to help with the COVID situation, but getting those linemen back will really help them with that addition of Orlando Brown. The Ravens get a lot of draft picks back in return. Like I said, a 1st, a 3rd, a 4th, and I believe a 5th next year. So, in my opinion, Garth, good trade for both sides. Like you said, it's going to be very interesting what happens with Orlando Brown's contract, because it has been widely reported he wants a big deal, and the Chiefs, they're giving so much money to Patrick Mahomes. They have a lot of players they need to pay. I'm going to be interested to see what kind of contract they give him. Obviously, they didn't just trade for him not to give him a contract. He's going to get a contract. I'm just very interested to see what it'll be.
Yeah, and I think that as of right now, not counting in potentially what could be a contract, because that's not known at the moment, just with what we know, I think it's a win-win for both teams. As you said, Kansas City shores up the line. They've now got, what should be 2 very good, comparable starting offensive tackles, which was really the only, huge weakness with the offensive line. As we all know, teams could always look to improve their offensive line, at depth, all that kind of stuff. But, I think that this is a pretty solid offensive line now. And the Chiefs aren't a team with a lot of needs. I think the offense is loaded right now, as long as that O-line stays healthy and plays up to their ability. The defense, yeah, they could add to a little bit, but we keep seeing this with this Kansas City Chiefs team, where they don't need their defense to play excellent. It feels like, for the past 3 or 4 seasons now, the defense has been good, not great, nowhere near great. They make a few big plays here and there when they really need them most. They do tend to play tough at home with fans, but by no means a top-tier defense in the NFL. And because that offense is just so good, can put up points so quickly, it really offsets that. So obviously they'll be looking to add to the defense for the draft, but there isn't a ton of pieces or major holes on that team to where they couldn't afford to make a deal like this. And then on the other hand, with the Ravens, like you said, they're getting rid of somebody who didn't really want to be there. It isn't a player with Staley coming back. It isn't a player that they absolutely had to have. And if he was demanding a contract from them as well, they don't have to pay that contract now, and they get a lot of picks in return. They could use that number 31 in the first round to, try and add an offensive weapon for Lamar, which, I think this will be a very offensive heavy draft for them. So win-win, in my opinion, both teams.
Yeah, Garth, and when you look at it, Orlando Brown Jr. is still only 25, or he's 24. He's going to turn 25 on May 2nd. So this is a guy that can play for the Ravens for a very long time and do it at a high level. Obviously, I believe he made 2 straight Pro Bowls. When you look at it for the Baltimore Ravens, they drafted Orlando Brown in the 3rd round, and a few years later, they're able to turn that pick into a great trade haul. So I think the key, Garth, for the Chiefs is obviously we saw that their offensive line was exposed, especially I think after Eric Fisher tore his Achilles. That really hurt them, and obviously they released him in the offseason. I think that's why they desperately needed to get it out of Orlando Brown in to shore up that offensive line. They got Mike Rimmers on the other tackle. They're going to get Duvernay Tardif back at guard, which is going to really help them as well. So I think their offensive line will be much improved. I don't think it'll be a top tier elite unit or anything, but Patrick Mahomes doesn't need that to absolutely dominate on offense. And like you said, their defense, kind of like their offensive line, in my opinion, it isn't elite or anything, but it can get the job done. So like good trade for both sides, in my opinion.
Yeah, and one last thing here, because I was curious and pulled it up here. One thing worth noting, Noah, between what they have for active contracts right now, the dead cap space, and what they have rolling over from the 2020 year, they are actually, according to this, I pulled up Sport Track. It looks like they go pretty in depth on every player, their cap hit, their dead cap. They're showing that they have estimated cap space of. Well, this is actually a little bit confusing because it's saying estimated cap space all -5 million, but estimated cap space of 9.8. So I'm going to go with that. They have 9.8 in cap. So they have, enough money to sign him. They don't have enough money to sign him to a top tier deal, at least at this moment in time. And you guys also got to keep in mind, although it isn't a huge toll on cap, they still have to sign whoever they draft. So by no means, unless they do some massive, readjusting of their cap, their salaries, potentially cutting some players, they don't have the money to pay him top tier. Would put them, below that cap or above that cap rather.
Yeah, and Garth, obviously, understanding a lot of the cap stuff, it is a bit difficult. I'm looking at it right here as well, and it says calculated market value for Orlando Brown, 19.2 million, which is not a small amount of money, Garth. You're right. But when you look at it, I also see Eric Fisher was 18.5 million, and I think Eric Fisher's something like 31 years old now. Orlando Brown's way younger. He's probably better at this point. So, I can understand why they did it. I'm sure they'll get the contract worked out. They'll probably go a bit under the or over the cap, excuse me. But like I said, you don't trade that much for a guy, Garth, just to not sign him. They're going to sign him. It's just a matter of what's the contract going to be. It might be not a long-term contract, but it might be maybe a shorter like bridge deal so they can start to maybe clear some space in the next few years to start signing some guys long-term. I don't know. Obviously we don't know. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, by no means am I a contract expert, but I'd agree with you. Expect a mid-range deal. I'd say like 2 to 3 years, maybe 4, but I don't think you're going to see this massive like 7 to 8 season deal. But one cool thing that's a little bit off topic. I'm looking at these salary numbers. It's kind of absurd to me the amount of money these guys get in what's called a workout bonus, which this is one thing that I know how it works. Basically, there's off-season optional workouts These guys, as the name implies, they have the option to go to. It's not mandatory. Should they go to these, they get a bonus. And just looking through the Chiefs in particular real quickly, the highest one on here that I see is defensive end Frank Clark. It's a $500,000 bonus if he shows up to his optional workouts. Just a little piece I wanted to add in there. I kind of found it humorous and maybe not something that everybody knew about.
They get paid, man. They make their money. There's no doubt about that.
But yeah, let's go ahead. We've kind of killed enough time here. Let's go ahead and let's jump right into this draft. As we said, first thing in the show, next Thursday night, we get the first round over there, 8 p.m. Eastern. And as we all know, Jacksonville Jaguars are up number 1 on the clock. This is the one pick of the draft. It is pretty much deadlock, set in stone. You can pretty much count on it happening, and that's going to be Trevor Lawrence out of Clemson to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. As we've said, Noah, there is a lot of top-tier quarterback talent in this draft, but Trevor Lawrence is kind of that consensus number 1 overall pick. You got to take him. There's no, debate, controversy there. So Urban Meyer in his first draft with the team, in my opinion, I'm going to have to agree with this and say that Trevor Lawrence will be headed to the Jacksonville Jaguars, number 1 overall.
Yeah, it's pretty consensus, Garth. And for this segment we got right here, I did pull up some mock drafts as well. I have an updated one, which is from actually today at 1:50 p.m., which is actually all 7 rounds. We're obviously not going to go over that, but I have one. Unfortunately, it is from about a week and a half ago, but it does have guys like Mel Kiper, Daniel Jeremiah, and Todd McShay on it. And, I just looked over it real quickly, and every single one of them obviously has Trevor Lawrence going to the Jaguars. No surprises here, so, let's just move on from that.
Yeah, like we said, pretty set in stone there, guys. Second up, as of right now, granted, this is, without some of our, the mock drafts do incorporate trades. But, as of right now, it is going to be the New York Jets second up on the clock. For me, this is where the draft starts to get interesting. I feel like second and third, even your Falcons at 4th, Noah, there's a few different guys I could see going to these teams. The particular mock draft that I have up now, CBS on NFL, has Zach Wilson going to the Jets. I do know that he had a fantastic pro day, so his draft stock, has skyrocketed. He was already, pretty high up there, but I feel like his pro day really, really helped him. I could see it. I could definitely see it. I feel like there is a lot of debate between Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, even a guy like Trey Lance, who, hasn't been hyped up as much as leading into the college football season in terms of draft stock. Mac Jones is sneaking up people's boards. He kind of is quietly climbing. I personally think that the 49ers like him a little bit better than the Jets do. But as I said, this is one where I could see anything happening. But I got to lean something like a 60-40, 70-30% chance that the Jets are going to take Zach Wilson at number 2.
I agree, Garth. I think he has absolutely skyrocketed on the draft boards to where I think he's probably, in the Jets' approximation at least, I think he's pretty comfortably ahead of a guy like Justin Fields. I think now, when we look at that number 3 pick, and I'm going to get more into Mac Jones when we get to the 49ers in a moment, but I think when you look at them, Trey Lance and Justin Fields seems to be more the conversation, in my opinion, than what we thought it would be, which I thought it would be Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. Now I think, it's obviously Trevor at the top, and then it's Zach Wilson. You have to go ways down, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing from people to get to Justin Fields. So I would probably say it's going to be Zach Wilson because I think he is just skyrocketed on the draft boards lately.
Yeah, most definitely. So me and Noah both have Zach Wilson going number 2. As I said, there is a little bit of chance that doesn't happen or maybe a trade comes in, but I got to go with Zach Wilson at 2. Number 3, from they acquired this from the Miami Dolphins. San Francisco 49ers, number 3 on the clock. This is one that's very interesting to me, Noah. Basically, as we've said in previous weeks, the team is saying that, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo is still our guy. That doesn't mean we're not going to take quarterback, though. And I think as we've gotten closer to the draft, at least from all the draft experts, it's become very evident that they are for sure going to be taking quarterback. I think after they made that trade with the Dolphins to move up to that number 3 spot that screams, hey, we got to get our quarterback at number 3. We're not going to, he's not going to be there later in the draft. This particular mock draft that I have up has Mac Jones going to San Francisco. I think as of right now, like I said, he has quietly been climbing up the draft boards. I'm not saying he is their best pick, but I am saying that this is my personal prediction that they are going to take Mac Jones, quarterback out of Alabama. I'm going to pass the mic over to you, Noah, but I will say I want to talk Mac Jones a little bit, get our opinions on him.
It's crazy, Garth. I've always thought of Mac Jones. This is a guy that, he hasn't really been talked about a lot at all. I think when you're talking guys like quarterbacks, Trey Lance, obviously Justin Fields, Wilson Lawrence, I think, Mac Jones has kind of been at best that fifth guy. And then all of a sudden, I'm glad you actually mentioned, I think he's come out of nowhere a bit, especially from some of these draft experts. Like I said, I got the mock drafts up here. And Mel Kiper has Justin Fields going to the 49ers, which is what I was probably going to say as well. But then I look at Todd McShay, Daniel Jeremiah, and I also have an NFL.com mock draft from Chad Reuter. They all have Mac Jones going to the 49ers. I think that's very interesting. Now, don't get me wrong. I think Mac Jones is a fantastic quarterback, but he hasn't had a lot of traction lately, Garth. And I think like Zach Wilson, he's just skyrocketed lately. Now, like you said, they said Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be their guy for 2021, but you don't give up all they did, Garth, to not take a quarterback. I think they're definitely taking a quarterback. Me personally, I would probably take Justin Fields over Mac Jones, but like you said, he's getting linked to them a lot. It's really tough for me to pick against that. So, I know it's unoriginal, but I'm probably going to agree with you again. I'm probably going to say Mac Jones.
Yeah, I just feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, because by no means am I expert on Kyle Shanahan. But obviously, he was there with the Atlanta Falcons for years. He worked with Matt Ryan, developed a close relationship with him. I feel like Mac Jones, I'm not saying that his NFL comparison is Matt Ryan by any means, but out of the quarterbacks that are available, at their position, I feel like he's the one that most resembles Matt Ryan. And I feel like that really fits the scheme, what he's looking for out of a quarterback the most. I feel like between him, Trey Lance, and Justin Fields, you might be able to say that he is the best pure passer of the three in terms of just being a pocket passer, throwing the deep ball, whereas the other two bring a little bit more of a extend the play, running threat, overall, more athletic player than he is. Like I said, I could be wrong. I'm no expert on Kyle Shanahan, but I do feel that Mac Jones fits his system very well out of what I've seen with him in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and why he went and got Jimmy Garoppolo in the first place to bring into San Francisco.
Well, I can certainly understand why you say that, Garth. And obviously, I'm not going to doubt Kyle Shanahan what he sees in quarterbacks. I think, the fact he's taken a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo and gotten this much out of him, obviously took him to the Super Bowl. I think that says a lot about his credentials. Obviously, we all know the problems with blowing leads in Super Bowls and all that, but I still think he's a very good offensive mind. He's going to take a quarterback. Whoever he takes there, Garth, I would put a lot of faith in because, that's a great coach to get drafted to. No question about it.
Yeah, most definitely. Keeping it moving here, Noah. We got your team, Atlanta Falcons, on the clock, number 4. It seems like, at least what I've been seeing out of mock drafts, out of the experts' opinions, it's really, really narrowed down in the past couple of weeks. I feel like we went from a month or two ago to having all these possibilities, all these choices, to basically everybody and their brother saying that you guys are going to be taking Kyle Pitts. And I want to hear, what are your thoughts on that, Noah?
I think there's 2 players that have been getting linked to us a lot, Garth. And in my opinion, I think they're both good players, but I'm not sure I want either of them. Obviously, like you said, Kyle Pitts, he's gotten linked to us a lot. He's the guy that Mr. Reuter from NFL.com has going to us. I believe that Todd McShay also has him going to us. Let me just confirm that real quick. Todd McShay has him going to the Atlanta Falcons. And the other guy, Garth, who is another guy that I think has really gone up the boards late. And I don't know what Justin Fields did. I don't know what he's done the past 2 weeks. He is just fallen like a rock, Garth. I really don't know what happened. I think he's going to be a great NFL player, and I love the guy, obviously, for all he went through the past year. And obviously we just saw it, got diagnosed with epilepsy. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know. But he has fallen down, Garth, to the point where you have guys like Mel Kiper and Daniel Jeremiah saying we're going to take Trey Lance over Justin Fields. Now, I'm not big on the quarterback pick. We've talked about this in depth. I'm not even too big on the Kyle Pitts pick, even though I think he's a fantastic player. Trey Lance, to be honest, Garth, is probably the last guy I would want at this pick. If we take a quarterback, I'd take a guy like Justin Fields over him, in my opinion. I'd even take Kyle Pitts over him. Ideally, I'd prefer, if we're not going to get a lineman or a defender at that pick, I'd prefer we trade back. But what I'm hearing a lot, Garth, is it's either going to be Kyle Pitts or it's going to be Trey Lance, or we trade down. That's what I've been hearing.
Yeah, and from the outside looking in, Noah, I feel like, this Atlanta Falcons is going to, obviously the new GM, not brand new, but obviously it's going to be the first full season with the new head coach there. I feel like they're probably looking for some stability in their first year. And that's why I think that they're going to, Matt Ryan is still their guy. I also personally, really like Matt Ryan. I feel like he's got some left in the tank. He's still got, several good seasons left in him. So by no means do I think that you guys need to take quarterback at number 4. I actually believe that you could get somebody pretty darn good later on in the draft as well, especially with guys like my guy, Kyle Trask, who knows where he's going to go. That kind of seems to be all over the place, but we'll get, more into that when we get a little bit further back in the first round. But yeah, I feel like probably what's going to happen here is it's going to be one of those situations where they say, hey, maybe we don't absolutely have to have this player, but he is so good, physically, athletically talented, that we can't just not take him. We can't pass up and, miss out on this opportunity. And for that reason, and the fact that you do have Matt Ryan still under center, I feel like it's very, 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 very possible that you guys do take Kyle Pitts. Personally, my prediction, whether it's the best fit for you guys or not, I'm going to have to agree here and say that Kyle Pitts doesn't make it past number 4. Unfortunate for my Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I'd probably agree. I think he's probably the favorite at this point. And like I've told you, I think he's a great player. If they pick him, I'm not going to, be outraged or anything like that. I think he is a fantastic player. He'd probably be the overall best player available. But I'm a guy, we just have so many needs, Garth. I'm not too sure about it, but I'm just going to agree with you here. I think they will probably take Kyle Pitts.
We're in agreement there again. We're going to move on to the next pick, number 5, being the Cincinnati Bengals. It looks like they have their franchise quarterback in Joe Burrow. He did go down with that ACL injury, unfortunately, as we all know. But he showed absolutely no signs that he is not the guy in Cincinnati there for the future. And for that reason, most mock drafts I've seen have them taking an offensive lineman. And here we are again with me being disappointed that my Chargers went on a winning end the season and we're not higher up in the draft pick. Because I think it's pretty safe to say that they're going to take Penei Sewell. He much like Trevor Lawrence with the quarterback situation, he is the clear-cut consensus best offensive tackle available in this draft. In all the experts' opinions. And I will point out, though, I do firmly believe that he probably is the best prospect for offensive tackles. I will say there are a few other tackles in this draft that I really, really like, Noah, and are going to be available for the Chargers that I don't think are leaps and bounds behind this guy. But this pick definitely makes sense. As we've both said on the show in the past, you have got to protect Joe Burrow, get that man a line, let him lead that offense and just put up crazy numbers. So I think this is a no-brainer. They have to go offensive line here, and Sewell is the best available at their pick.
I agree, Garth. And, obviously it's going to get boring if we keep agreeing with each other. But, I got a mock draft here that obviously hasn't taken Kyle Pitts, but we already have the Falcons taking him. I have one, Garth, actually, that has them taking Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU. That's very interesting. Obviously, AJ Green just left. I think a lot of their receivers are aging as well. John Ross was an absolute bust for them. I think Tyler Boyd is still there. I'll just look it up real quick just to make sure. Yes, he's still there. So maybe they would want a guy to go on the other side of him. But you're right, Garth. They need to protect Joe Burrow. That's why he got hurt. The offensive line was terrible. He got wedged by I believe they're playing the Washington football team that game. got wedged between about three defenders. I believe one of them was Chase Young. They can't have that happen to our franchise guy guard. So, take that tackle, protect your quarterback. I'm going to agree with you again for the fifth straight time. I'm going to say they take Penei Sewell.
Yeah, and I'm seeing that Jamar Chase prediction as well. I think that don't get me wrong. I think that would be a good pickup by them. As you mentioned, their wide receiver core isn't exactly the best in the league. AJ Green did leave. Tyler Boyd, I don't really know with that guy. He was a guy that I really liked personally, Noah. I think he's shown some flashes. We just got to see him be that number one receiver and stay healthy for the course of a season. And other than that, there really isn't a whole lot of guys to jump out. I mean, they do have T. Higgins, which it's too early, I feel like, to say whether he's going to be a great NFL receiver or not. So they probably do still have some faith in him that makes them say, hey, we don't need a wide receiver. But Jamar Chase would be a good pickup. I think he's one of the best wide receivers, if not potentially the best in this draft. But as I said, you got to protect Joe Burrow. Quarterback, you ask anybody, is the most important position on your football team, and you got to be able to protect him. But moving on, we have number 6, Miami Dolphins, Noah, who, as we mentioned earlier, did swap places with the 49ers to be at that number 6 position. This is kind of where the draft starts to get interesting. This is where we might see some controversy, some different, picks from different mocks and experts. Just looking at it here, I do see one where they have the Broncos actually trading up, and believe it or not, it's to take a quarterback. I'm not really sure if they are, sold on Drew Lock not being their guy or not. So I don't really know how I feel about that one. I feel like they probably give him another year, especially with some of the offensive weapons that they're, starting to put around him. But going with the fact that Miami does stay at number 6, I say that they're looking to add an offensive weapon for Tua in that offense. The defense is really, really good. We talked a lot about that throughout the season. We really like that Miami Dolphins defense. For that round, I feel like they absolutely have to go offense. If Kyle Pitts were still available, I would say Kyle Pitts to Miami all day. With him being taken by the Falcons in our mock draft tonight and Bengals taking Sewell, I feel like Jamar Chase has got to go here at number 6 to the Miami Dolphins, Noah.
Well, you know what, Garth? I got to tell you, I think I got to disagree for the first time. And here's my reason on this, Garth. I think it's pretty consensus, especially among these mock drafts. They're going to take a wide receiver. Tua, they obviously, took him last year. They want to get him some weapons. Jamar Chase is a great player, and he arguably could be better with than Devontae Smith. But the thing for me, Garth, you have to remember, obviously, Tua is an Alabama guy. I think they might want to take an Alabama receiver to link with him because they already have that chemistry. They want their young quarterback to be as comfortable as possible going into the second season because the second season is massive for your confidence, Garth. Anyone can have a great rookie year, but once you start to get to that sophomore season, you get a lot more expectation. So I think they're going to take an Alabama wide receiver. So obviously that means it's either Jalen Waddle or Devontae Smith. In my opinion, I would take Devontae Smith over Jalen Waddle. So you say Jamar Chase, I'm going to go out on a limb and say Devontae Smith.
Yeah, and for sake of having our mock draft be a little bit different, not be exactly what you guys are seeing from most experts, I'm going to say, Noah, let's go ahead and let's slot either of the two. Let's just say I'll kind of be the tiebreaker here, and I'll say let's slot Jalen Waddle in here to the Miami Dolphins. So Jamar Chase will still be available for our mock draft as of now. I don't know. It's really tough because, like you said, there's that continuity, there's that chemistry with Tua. He obviously played with both of these guys at Alabama. It's really tough between the two. I'm just going to say Jalen Waddle for the sake of, getting past this pick. So we've still got Devontae Smith and we've still got Jamar Chase, 2 phenomenal wide receivers available in our draft so far.
Yeah, I mean, let's just switch it up, Garth. Everyone, you can get the regular mock drafts from anybody. So, let's just put Jalen Waddle in there. Let's just move on. We still got these, 2 absolute beasts available for someone to pick.
So I'm seeing a lot of interesting stuff here around this next pick. A lot of people seem to be having Denver making a trade, Noah.
Yep.
It's to the number 6 spot, or I also see one here where they trade up to number 7. Um, in both the mock drafts that I have up, they have them taking a quarterback. So I guess that, I can't say personally that I think that they don't give Drew Lock one more season, because as I did say, they're adding some weapons around him. I think they might give him one more season to either prove he's their guy or to show that he's not their guy. Um, I'll just go over what they have. One of them that I have up has them taking Justin Fields, and the other one actually has them taking Justin Fields as well. Just one is at number 6 and one's at number 7. But for sake of difference, I'm going to say that at the number 7 spot, the Denver Broncos are actually going to take Jamar Chase here to add yet another offensive weapon to that Denver Broncos offense. I would say a running back, because I do feel that is of greater need. But as we've seen in this draft, there is some great running backs, but for whatever reason, none of them are anywhere near the top of this draft as far as where they're predicted to go. And that's the only reason why I feel like they will be able to get a great running back later on in the draft.
It's very interesting, Garth. I'm seeing Denver projected to trade up a lot as well. The problem with mock drafts, Garth, is we have no idea what the trades are going to be. And, projecting trades, I mean, it's just a crapshoot, basically. I'm not sure they want to give up on Drew Lock yet, Garth. I really don't. I think, like you mentioned, they have taken a lot of wide receivers in the past few years. I'm thinking of guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton. They took another one as well. His name is unfortunately slipping my mind right now, but they've gotten a lot of weapons there, Garth. And I think that's one of their strengths is their skills positions. If they trade up, I think it actually, crazy as it can be, it might be for another wide receiver, which would be unbelievable. Their wide receivers be young and very good. I don't think it'll be a quarterback, so I'd probably say Jamar Chase as well.
Okay, we're in agreement there. I will say, now thinking about it, moving forward in this mock draft, I feel like we should probably go with what the order is without trades, just because it'll be a heck of a lot easier to keep track of, what we got going on, as we don't have like some, big spreadsheet and paper and pencils, in front of us to try and keep all of this in track. So we've got Jamar Chase going to the Denver Broncos. They take yet another wide receiver. That would mean next up on the clock, without counting trades, would be the Carolina Panthers. This is a little bit interesting. The Panthers, to me, are a team that, I don't know if there's one specific player that they absolutely need to take in the first round to have a day one impact on their team. I feel like they have needs all across the board, which I guess is why, some of these mock drafts have them trading back. I feel like if you're the Panthers, you're probably going to want to invest in offensive line, Noah. I feel like you got to protect your quarterback. You've got to, hope to have some blocking for Christian McCaffrey, who's absolutely phenomenal. As of right now, he still is, the face of that franchise. He's their guy who's going to draw on fans and put up crazy numbers. So I could see them taking a guy like Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Another one they have on here, but I believe that's just because they have them trading back, is Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. But yeah, I'm going to say they got to go offensive line. I'm not dead set on who, but should they remain with the pick that they have as of now, I got to say Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, Northwestern Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, I think that's a very good pick, Garth. And a guy I'm seeing with the Panthers a lot is Justin Fields, actually. I have one guy here that has Justin Fields dropping to number 8. I have one guy that even has the Panthers trading up to number 3. I don't know about the 49ers wouldn't trade out for that, but they have them trading up to number 3 for Justin Fields. The interesting thing for me, Garth, is, obviously I'm not a big fan of him at all, but they did recently pick up Sam Darnold. Now, obviously, Sam Darnold is going in his 4th year. I don't think he's any good at all. I really don't. But they might be trying to see if he's got something down there. So I'm not too sure. And Teddy, the thing is, Garth, I have to look at this real quick, but Teddy Bridgewater is still there. And, I don't think he's a leader or anything like that, but he's a solid game manager. So I don't know if they actually would take a quarterback. Um, I think an offensive line, it's always a good choice, Garth, especially if you're a bad team. Typically, you have a terrible offensive line. Um, I think Rashawn Slater's a pretty good choice, actually. So, I'll agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and yet again, unfortunate for my Los Angeles Chargers, is that is another guy that I would really like for us to get, as he is, my favorite offensive lineman behind Sewell. Um, but with that, Denver would be next up on the clock. Obviously, we did go ahead and predict for them trading up. So next up on the clock for us would be the Dallas Cowboys. Here's a team that, unlike the Panthers, to me have a lot of positions that jump out to me as big needs. Um, this is a tough one for me, Noah. I feel like what I've been seeing the most and is the most popular is the fact that they do need to invest in a DB. There is a lot of debate that I've seen personally on which DB is going to be first off the board. I know a lot of guys like Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I will say that me personally, he is not number one, and this might be an unpopular opinion. He's not number one on my DB list, just because I can't say I watched a lot of him, Noah. I did not watch a lot of him because I don't like Alabama. I won't lie there. So I don't really tend to watch all of their football games. But I will say he did, when we played them in that SEC championship game, I did notice him specifically getting burnt a lot in coverage. I don't know. I think he's talented. Don't get me wrong. I'm just not sold on him. I feel like there's some guys in this draft who have shown that they can be lockdown corners. One of them is the cornerback out of University of South Carolina. The name's escaping me. I'm trying to find it here now. Help me if you know. JC
Horn.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I like him a lot. You look at this past season that guy had. He absolutely shut people down week in, week out, playing man coverage on an island on a team that overall was not that good, and he was kind of a bright spot in it and managed to, flourish despite it. He personally is probably going to take my number one DB off the board. I think the Cowboys should take him if they go DB, but I'm going to have to say that I see them taking Patrick Surtain. I do feel like that's probably a very, very plausible pick for them.
Yeah, and I think they should take a DB guard. The thing is, it's Jerry Jones. Trying to predict what he's going to do is really hard. He likes to go for those, flashy picks. I honestly wouldn't be surprised, Garth, and we haven't had him taken yet. I wouldn't be surprised if they took a guy like Devontae Smith if he was still there, to be honest. Pair him up with, guys like C.D. Lamb and Michael Gallup. That would be some great weapons there in Dallas. But I think the logical pick, like you said, they need to shore up their defense. It's not good enough. Obviously, they got my boy Dan Quinn running the defense, which is just, a disaster waiting to happen. But he likes his defenders. I think they will take a defender. The thing is, Garth, like you said, it's really tough. I think Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech and Patrick Surtain are the top two guys. Then you get guys like Asante Samuel or Horn. I think they probably will go with Patrick Surtain, just because he has that, obviously that name value. His father was a guy who played in the NFL for a very long time, whereas Caleb Farley, he doesn't have that. So I think, maybe just, for ad revenue and stuff like that, for the name recognition, he probably will go with Patrick Surtain. And Patrick Surtain is a good player, don't get me wrong. So, and he does address the needs. So, I'm going to have to go with you once again, Garth. It just makes it easier. I'll go with Patrick Surtain Jr. as well.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points there, Noah. And I'll add to it that, as we all know, teams absolutely love drafting guys out of Alabama as of late. Whether they pan out or not, there's just that Alabama factor, unfortunately, for us college football fans. But moving down the list, next up on our clock would be the New York Giants. Everything that I've seen, there's kind of a lot of consensus idea to who they're going to take, or at least what position specifically. Everything that I've been seeing is predicting them to, take an edge defender, a defensive end, outside linebacker that can play down on the line of scrimmage type guy. I will say that this is one position in the draft that by no means am I an expert on. I don't really know a lot of the great edge defenders in this NFL draft this season, I won't lie. But what I'm looking at here has them taking, it looks like Kwity Paye, edge out of Michigan, senior 4-year player, big body, 6'4", 272. They're saying that the Giants fans may not be a big fan of the pick because it's not a flashy pick, but it does address a big need. And also, they're kind of talking about how the Giants missed big time on Josh Allen, edge defender out of Kentucky. That is one that I know. You know, I don't know enough on edge defenders to weigh in on this pick too much, Noah. But so I'm just going to go with what the experts are predicting: Kwity Paye, Michigan, edge defender, New York Giants.
And I'm going to agree with you, Garth. I think, they do need a edge rusher. Their D-line isn't the best. They need to shore that up because if you can't rush the passer, you're going to have a really rough time. I actually see someone here having them take Caleb Farley, which is quite interesting because I do think the secondary could use some help as well. Someone has them taking Rashawn Slater, but obviously he's gone in our draft. Someone even has them taking Devontae Smith, which is kind of crazy. But yeah, I'll go with Kwity Paye.
Yeah, so, continuing it right down the list, next up on our clock would be the Philadelphia Eagles, as they were a part of that deal with the Miami Dolphins, San Francisco 49ers. So for me, Noah, this is a pick that screams, what do you value more? They need defensive badly and they need offensive badly, specifically the wide receiver position, as we've seen. It does look like they've got a lot of faith in their quarterback there, at least for this upcoming season. So for me, it's really, what do you value more? Are you looking to improve the defense mostly this draft, or are you looking to kind of ignore the defense for now and add weapons to this offense that, maybe has the potential to be very electric? They definitely have a guy there under center who can extend plays and, make plays with his legs as well as throw the ball around pretty darn good as well. So, this is one where I could see them going either way. I feel like if they go offense, 110% a wide receiver. They need wide receivers so damn badly. They're pretty set at the running back position. Tight end, they could probably use some help there. But for me, it's wide receiver through and through. They need wide receiver help badly, like really damn badly. If they went defense, I feel like they probably go with a DB following suit with the Dallas Cowboys. They do need to shore up that secondary very badly. I feel like their front seven isn't terrible, so they would definitely be going in secondary. I'm going to go out on a limb here, Noah, and say that they're going to value offense a little bit more in this draft. And with that being said, they are going to take Devontae Smith out of Alabama.
It's really tough, Garth, because I thought about that as first. Then I thought, they did take Jalen Reagor last year out of TCU, so, maybe the jury's still out on him. But they put a lot of stock in Jalen Hurts, Garth. Obviously a second-round pick. They shipped Carson Wentz out. They took a lot of dead cap to do that, to basically hand the franchise over to Jalen Hurts. I think they're going to want to give him a lot of support on the offensive side. Now, logically, in my opinion, I think taking a defender would be better for them. I think, if Caleb Farley was still here, or maybe they take a guy like J.C. Horn, I think that'd be a great pick for them. Even Patrick Surtain, if we didn't already have him being taken. But I don't think they will. I think, like you said, they're going to go for the flashy pick. That's what they've always done. I think they probably would. If Devontae Smith was still here, that would actually be a really good pick because he's a great player. I just don't think it's their biggest need. I think it is a big need, but I don't know if this is their biggest one. But, I'll just agree with you again. I'll say they take Devontae Smith here.
And you know who that means is up next? It is my Los Angeles Chargers on the clock. Andrew, if you're still in here, buddy, this is us on the clock, number 13. Bearing we don't make any trades, move up, move back. Man, Noah, this one. Well, I'll say this one isn't hard. We have to go offensive line. As much as I want to get a flashy player, a big name, somebody who might be able to help us put points on the scoreboard, we got to do what's best for the team as a whole. We got to protect Justin Herbert. We can't be letting him get sacked and be, as good as he did do under pressure. We can't let that be the standard where, hey, you're going to get rushed and people in your face and being mauled every single play. Make the best of it, make the plays. We got to protect this guy. We got to give him a good offensive line because, as I say, week in, week out on the show, the line of scrimmage, both sides, is so damn important. And if you can protect your quarterback well, not only does that make his job easier, but it makes guys like running backs and wide receivers' jobs way, way easier as well. With that said, without me going on a huge rant and going on and on as I could for the Chargers, I'm going to say I believe so. We have Slater off the board and we have Penny Sewell off the board. So unfortunately, they won't be getting either one of those guys. I feel like we still have to go offensive tackle, and it's going to be a guy that I mentioned earlier on in the show. It's going to be Christian Darrisaw, left offensive tackle out of University of Virginia Tech. As I said, I could go on and on. I could go over all kinds of scenarios, situations, why we could do this or that. But for me, clear cut is we got to get an offensive line put together to protect our quarterback, our franchise quarterback.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with you, Garth. We've been hammering, this nail on the head for, probably half a year now. They needed to fix that offensive line for Justin Herbert. Now, I do see a couple people actually linking this USC guy to him. I don't exactly want to say his first name because I'll probably butcher it, but Vera Tucker, I see him being linked a bit to the Chargers. Obviously, I see a lot of offensive linemen being linked to them that have already been taken in our mock draft. But I'll probably just agree with you. I think Vera Tucker, he might be taken here, but I'll just go ahead and say like you, Christian Darrisaw.
Yeah, and you do make a good point there, Noah. He is a guy who's been rising up the draft boards. He's kind of thrown his name into this mix of best offensive linemen in the league, in the draft rather, as of the past couple weeks. I will say that the Chargers have a very long history of drafting players out of California schools. They do like their guys out of USC and UCLA. Junior Seau, Joshua Kelly, Vincenzo Nuoso, just real quick off the top of my head, guys that I could think of. It's definitely very plausible. I would not be shocked if it happened. Of the two, personally, I do like Darrisaw a little bit better. I feel like he's more of a physically imposing guy. He's shown versatility. I believe he did play both tackle positions. He was a 4-year starter. Didn't have any issues with injury. He might have had, a minor one here or there, but, no big time injuries. Stayed healthy, played a lot of games. 4-year starter, standout. If both Sewell and Rashawn Slater are off the board, this is for sure next up, the best tackle that we can take, in my opinion. But without spending all night on my Chargers, let's go ahead and let's move on to the next pick, Noah, which is going to bring us to the Minnesota Vikings. This is one where I see a lot of experts saying that they're going to go offensive line as well. They're still bought in on Kirk Cousins. The offense, there is some weapons there still. I wouldn't say that by any means is it absolutely top tier, but they do have Justin Jefferson, who looked absolutely phenomenal. Potentially going to continue improving to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. So there is that going for them. So I very well could see them taking offensive linemen. With the guys that we have off the board, I'm going to have to say that if they do go offensive line, it's going to be, as you just said, Vera Tucker out of USC to shore up that offensive tackle position, Noah.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. I'm going to go Vera Tucker for Minnesota. And just real quick, I actually just noticed something. we had the Denver Broncos trading up to number 7, taking, I believe it was Jamar Chase. We have to remember we actually skipped over the Detroit Lions, who would have traded back to number 9. So let's just do that real quickly. I think they need a defender, Garth. Their defense is actually terrible. Would you disagree with the Detroit Lions taking from Penn State Micah Parsons?
Not at all. That dude absolutely showed out at his pro day. Very good defender. His draft stock has skyrocketed, so no argument out of me there, Noah.
All right. I'm just making a document so we can kind of go over it at the end. We're up to Minnesota, and we just did Elijah Vera Tucker. So let's move on to who's at number 15, Garth.
Would be the we just did them. So where we're at now would be the New England Patriots at number 15.
Oh, this is going to be an interesting one.
Yeah, it really is. To many surprise, they did re-sign Cam. It looks like they're trying to build more of an electric offense around him. They did lose Joe Thuney. It's escaping me. I can't believe I can't remember right now, but they did sign somebody to that offensive line, if memory serves me correctly. But overall, they're looking to improve the offensive line. I feel like they're looking to add some weapons to that offense as well. Obviously guys like Devontae Smith are off our board. Jalen Waddle is off our board. Jamar Chase. Is Devontae Smith still available in our draft, Noah? I don't have kind of.
No, we had him go to the Eagles.
Okay, yep, that's right. We did have him going to the Eagles. So, maybe they don't go wide receiver here at this point in our mock draft just because, maybe there isn't a guy there that they feel like is worth taking in the first round. I feel like they still got to go offense, though. I feel like they have to go for a weapon. I feel like they're a little bit too high to be taking Kadarius Toney, a guy out of Florida that I personally really like, but I feel like he's going to be towards the bottom end of the first round. Just looking through it here, this could be one of those picks where they kind of take somebody out of left field that nobody expected. Just for sake of picking somebody, I'm just going to go with wide receiver because I feel like that's their biggest need on offense. Like I said, Toney, I see going more so the back end of the first round. I could see them taking a guy like Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota here, Noah, or the guy out of Purdue.
Rondell Moore.
Yeah, Rondell Moore. I just feel like they have to go offense here, Noah.
See, I would agree, Garth. The thing is, they did obviously sign, what's their names, Johnny Smith and Hunter Henry to massive contracts. So I'm wondering if they're going to be more reliant on tight ends than wide receivers. I could still see them taking one, but I could also see them potentially taking a cornerback or maybe even an edge rusher here. There's a lot of players at play. So who did you pick, Garth? Have you picked anyone yet?
Yeah, I guess I kind of picked two people, but the one that I see going higher in most mock drafts is Rashad Bateman. So I'll have them taking Bateman here.
All right. For a lack of argument's sake, because this is obviously going to take a while at this point, I'm just going to write down that the New England Patriots take Rashad Bateman from Minnesota, I believe. All right. Number 16, Garth.
Yep, we do have the Arizona Cardinals on the board. This is another interesting pick for me. This is a team that has multiple needs. As we said a few weeks ago, it isn't a team with tons of glaring weaknesses and holes that they need to fill, but definitely more than one position that they for sure need to shore up. I have some drafts here, talking about how they could take a DB, a guy like Greg Newsome out of Northwestern. Also, I see some, here we go again with the edge defender, Aziz Ojulari out of Georgia. Hopefully I didn't butcher his name. No, I apologize if I did. This is a tough one for me. This is another one where I could, see this team doing multiple things. I could also see them taking Caleb Farley, but I will say due to that injury, he is really kind of falling down the draft board, which for me doesn't upset me because if he can fall all the way to the second round, my Chargers can get him. And if we were able to take a tackle that I really liked and somehow get Caleb Farley in the second, that would be like a dream come true for rounds 1 and 2. So I'm going to go ahead here, Noah, and I'm going to say that they draft DB because their defensive line as a whole and generating pressure is a little bit better than their secondary is. So they're going to want to shore up that secondary. And I'm going to say that Caleb Farley is going to drop a little bit further and go with Greg Newsome, cornerback out of Northwestern.
It's a very interesting choice, Guard. Now, I agree with them taking DB. There's a lot of choices still. Obviously, like you said, Caleb Farley has dropped. We still have guys like J.C. Horn is still here. We have Tyson Campbell from my Bulldogs, Greg Newsome, as you said. But I think, and I see them being linked to an edge rusher as well. Someone has them taking Gregory Rousseau from Miami. But I think with Chandler Jones coming back after he missed most of the season last year, that's going to give them a big boost because I think he's a fantastic player. I think they will go DB. You said Greg Newsome, so I'm just going to go ahead and write that down, Garth. Gregory Newsome. Who's number 17, Garth?
Number 17 is going to be the Las Vegas Raiders, another rival of my Chargers. This is a team that the run game last year, didn't look as good as the year before, but I feel like, there's definitely still some potential there to have one of the best rushing offenses in the league. They are still, at least seeming to be sold on Derek Carr for being their guy for the future. I think this is kind of one of the more easier ones to pick. They have good offensive weapons for the most part. I could see maybe them taking a defensive guy, especially in our mock draft with J.C. Horn falling this far back. But not too much thought being put into this. I do feel like they're going to go with an offensive tackle to help shore up that line. This particular mock draft has them taking Tavon Jenkins, Oklahoma State. I feel like that's very plausible. I also like I believe it's Alex Leatherwood, tackle out of Alabama. So I can see them taking either one of them. I'm going to go with Leatherwood because of the two, that's the guy that I know. That's the guy that I like a little bit better. So I'm going to say Leatherwood, offensive tackle, University of Alabama.
All right, let me just get that down. Alex Weatherwood, tackle from University of Alabama. All right, Garth, who is at number 18?
Number 18.
I believe it is actually the Miami Dolphins, if I remember right. That's one of the picks they got.
It is the Miami Dolphins. And now, before when they were on the board, we were talking about how they wanted to add to that offense. I think that their second pick in the first round, they got to go defense. As we said, it's very good, but they can definitely add pieces, specifically, in my opinion, to the defensive line. We know how important pass rush is in the NFL. And a guy that you actually just mentioned who, only because he didn't play this past season, is going to fall this far in the first place. I think that they take Jalen Phillips, edge defender, University of Miami. He is a player who has the upside to be a very, very good pass rusher in the league, Noah.
I agree, Garth. I think he's a fantastic player. I think with him, and I believe, I think I just actually mentioned Gregory Rousseau. They have a lot of great players coming out right now, Garth. So it's going to be interesting to see where they go. Sorry, my mind's just drawing a blank. Who did you just say? Was it Rousseau or the other guy? It was Jalen Phillips?
Yeah, Jalen Phillips.
All right, I'll just go ahead. And obviously a local boy, Garth. You can't underestimate that impact as well. But we'll just go Jalen Phillips, edge rusher, Miami. All right, Garth, who's number 19?
So next up, we have the Washington football team. Now, I will say the two mock drafts that I have up one has them taking Kadarius Toney. The other one has them taking Micah Parsons, who he is off our draft board. And as I said earlier, I do really like Kadarius Toney being my guy out of Florida, but I'm going to stick with the fact that he's going to drop a little bit later in this first round. I'm actually going to throw a curveball here, Noah. I'm going to say, due to the quarterbacks that we still have left on this list, Alex Smith retiring, there is no, absolute number one quarterback there in Washington. I'm going to say that because of who's left on this board, they're going to go quarterback here. Which quarterback? I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to say, just for sake of making this interesting, I'm going to say that they go Justin Fields here at number 19.
That's an interesting one, Garth. And obviously he has really slipped down our draft boards a lot. I guess from this one, we're saying maybe, and there's always this one guy, Garth, who's projected really high, and he just slips out of nowhere. I'd say in this version of our draft, maybe, that epilepsy thing that just came up a few days ago, it's got a lot of these teams really nervous. There's a lot of teams that don't exactly need a quarterback. They already got a young guy there they're trying to build around. A guy like Justin Fields slipping all the way to Washington, they do need a quarterback. I agree with that. Obviously, Alex Smith retired. They let Dwayne Haskins go. He didn't work out there. Taylor Heineke was great in the playoff game, but he's not really – I don't think they want him to be the starter there. So I'm just going to pencil it in. This is one of the most controversial picks we've made so far, I'd say. But, it's better to be controversial than just run the mill. We got Justin Fields going to the Washington football team. How about that?
And actually, next up on the board is going to be the Chicago Bears. And I'm actually going to follow suit here, Noah. I'm going to say we see back-to-back quarterbacks off the board, much like the beginning of the draft. And I'm going to say that the Chicago Bears take Trey Lance, quarterback, North Dakota State, as he is still available, and they just watched their other possible guy in Justin Fields be taken.
All right, let's get Trey Lance in here from North Dakota State University. Who's after Chicago?
Here is a team that, maybe I might not be rooting as hard for this season as they don't have Phillip Rivers, but a team that I have grown to have a little bit of a soft spot for, and that's going to be the Indianapolis Colts. Now, this is a team in the draft that I do know a little bit more about. I do have a better feel of what, their exact needs are. They did address the quarterback situation. They did bring in Carson Wentz. Obviously, at least for this season, that is going to be their guy. I feel like they have a pretty solid backup in Jacoby Brissett, so they're not really looking to, draft a potential backup that could sit behind them. Although I will say, I don't think this is going to happen, but I would be very happy if they did take my guy Kyle Trask. But I think that what they're going to do is they're going to look to improve that defense. I feel like they're pretty set on the offensive side of the ball, except maybe I could see them taking a wide receiver here, depending on who is available. But I feel like they look to improve the defense just a little bit more. That is, absolutely phenomenal already. I think that they're going to take the other guy. I believe it's Russo, if I'm correct, edge defender out of the University of Miami, to really add to that pass rush. As they have a guy like DeForest Buckner on that defensive line to generate inside pressure, they need somebody on the outside as well.
Yeah, Garth, I think that's an interesting choice because looking over my mocks, I believe it's Mel Kiper actually has the Indianapolis Colts taking Gregory Rousseau. From what I'm seeing from CBS Sports a few weeks ago, they actually have him rated as a second round pick, but obviously, Garth, there's that one guy that kind of gets taken a little higher than you might expect. I think the Colts, their foundation for the team is very good. I think the offensive line is phenomenal. Their receivers are passable. I don't think they need one in the first round. But if they could shore up that defense a little more with a guy like Gregory Rousseau, I'm just going to go ahead and write him down here on this list that we'll go over at the end. That's a very interesting pick, Garth. Two Miami guys going in 4 picks with Jalen Phillips to Miami and Gregory Rousseau to the Colts.
Yeah, and I will say real quickly before we move on, it is pretty cool that me and Mel Kiper had the same pick. I will say that I did not see that pick by Mel Kiper. That just, happened to be how it was. But next up on the clock, Noah, we have the Tennessee Titans. Here is a team that I feel like personally could use some offensive line help. But at this point in the draft, I feel like there really isn't a tackle that they need to be taking in the first round. I feel like they can hold off and get somebody later on. Name's escaping me, but there's a guy out of Iowa that I really like that's projected to be taken later on in the draft. And for that reason, I'm going to say that they have to go defense. I feel like they need to shore up that secondary, very badly. Do we still have J.C. Horn, or did we have him off the board?
I think we do still have J.C. Horn and Garth as well. We still have Caleb Farley out there as well. He has really dropped here.
Right. Okay. So we do still have both of those guys available. I'm going to say that we finally see Caleb Farley stop dropping down in this draft. I'm going to say that the Tennessee Titans are going to be taking him to help shore up that defensive unit.
All right, Garth. We've got Caleb Farley out of Virginia Tech going to Tennessee Titans. A lot of cornerbacks in this first round, Garth. There really are.
Yeah, and following suit, we have another pick coming in for the New York Jets. They acquired via the Seattle Seahawks. This is a team, I don't know if I mentioned it earlier. I think we kind of just, mentioned that they're for sure going to be taking quarterback and, moved on. This is a team that needs a lot, Noah. They've got some guys here and there that I like, but overall, man, that team just, is not good top to bottom. They have a lot of glaring needs to me. I feel like they need offensive weapons, and I feel like they need defense. I very well could see them taking a defensive back. I very well could see J.C. Horn going here to them to help shore up that secondary in a pass-happy league.
I think they're going to take a defender, Garth. And from the mocks I'm looking at, I see 2 guys. Azeez Oluwajari, like you mentioned, from the University of Georgia. I also see a guy being listed to them quite often named Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. He's a linebacker. I think that could be a really good pick for them as well, Garth. To shore up your defense, linebacker, it's one of the most important positions you can get. Now, I'm not going to pretend like I've watched this guy a lot, but linebacker, that could be a great pick for them, Garth.
All right, I'm back. I kind of cut out there. I don't know if that was for both of us or just for me now, but I'm back. If you could hear me.
Yeah, did you hear what I was saying though?
I heard up until you were talking about how middle linebacker could impact that defense.
Yeah, I think a linebacker could really help their defense. So What do you think, Garth? Do you think they take the linebacker? Or you think they go an edge guy, a cornerback? They could always take a guy like Travis. They could come out of nowhere, Garth, take a running back like Najee Harris, Travis Etienne. What are you thinking about it?
Yeah, there's a guy there that you mentioned out of Notre Dame that I personally really like that I've been seeing going up the draft board like crazy. I'm going to say, actually, I'm going to change up my pick a little bit and say that they take him out of Notre Dame.
All right, I'm just gonna write him down. Hopefully, I spelled his name right. I believe we're up to 24, Garth. Who's at 24?
So 24 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, uh, which most mock drafts that I'm seeing, they're stating that the offensive line is of their greatest need, which, definitely I agree with there. We got a player from them. Pouncey retired. Villanueva is getting up there in age. Other than that, there isn't really a guy on the offensive line that I can think of, off the top of my head. I feel like they have to go offensive line here. I feel like not only do you have to help protect Big Ben this season, as he is getting older, I think you need to start building up that O line for the future, whoever is going to be taking Big Ben's place. I have one mock draft here having them take Christian Darrisaw, which he is off our board, so he will not be available. The other mock draft that I have up has them taking Creed Humphrey, center out of Oklahoma. This isn't a guy that I personally know too much about, but it's mentioning how he, has really strong hands and good positioning with his hands because he did grow up wrestling, which for those of you who don't know, hand movement, hand-eye coordination is huge in wrestling. So, I can definitely see that. And they're saying that he just moves really well in space, so he's very good for pass protection. So, I'm not going to argue too much with that. I feel like that center, Creed Humphrey out of Oklahoma, is a pretty, reasonable pick for them.
Yeah, and I think Garth, we still have Tevin Jenkins here if they want to take a tackle as well. So I mean, it's just, do we think they're going to take a tackle more? Or do we think they're going to take a center more? No. I'd have to look at their depth chart real quick just to kind of remind myself what they have. Um, I think a center is always a really good pick. Now Creed Humphrey, from the mock draft I have, let me just look real quick. He has a mid-second round grade from CBS Sports. But if I'm looking at their offensive line, Chukwuma Okorafor at right tackle, I'm a big fan of him. Obviously, they have DeCastro at guard, but looking at their left tackle and center guard, they're both not great, to be honest, from what I'm seeing. Rashad Coward and BJ Finney, not going to pretend I know a lot about these guys, but typically if, guys are that good, you would actually know a bit about them. So I think, a tackle or a center would be really good picks for them. So do you want to go with Tevin Jenkins, or do you want to go with Humphrey?
Yeah, let's go Tevin Jenkins here. I feel like as much as they do need a center, I feel like teams put a little bit more value in drafting tackles than centers.
All right, so we'll go with Tevin Jenkins, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma, Oklahoma State. Number 25, Garth.
So number 25, we have the Jacksonville Jaguars acquired from the Los Angeles Rams. This is where I'm going to see my guy going for the sake of, have Urban Meyer having ties to Florida, staying within the state. We have seen even before Urban was there that the Jaguars do like to draft guys in the state. They got guys there like C.J. Henderson, another University of Florida guy. And I'm going to say that this is where we see Kadarius Toney finally come off the board. If you're taking Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall, getting him some more offensive weapons is, in no way going to be a bad decision by them. And I feel like he kind of, fits the system well. I feel like he is a guy who's going to be playing a lot in the slot. He's going to be a guy who's running a lot of misdirection. You're going to see him, in the backfield a little bit, some screens. So, I feel like this particular guy fits what they need in terms of wide receiver the most. And as I said, just the ties Urban to Florida, Jacksonville liking to draft, guys within the state. I feel like this is where we finally see Kadarius Toney come off the board, Noah.
All right, Garth, we have Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from the University of Florida, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. That means that Rondell Moore is the top wide receiver left. Who's number 26, Garth?
So here we have the Cleveland Browns. And what I'm seeing here, Noah, is pretty much everybody has them. There's very different opinions on what specific player or position, but it looks like the consensus here is that they are going to go defense, which does make sense because they extend or rather pick up the 5th-year option on Baker. They look to have a good wide receiver core with Landry and Odell coming back. The offensive line is one of the best units in the league. Obviously, they have a good running game. Your guy there, Nick Chubb, is absolutely phenomenal. I don't see where they need to take a offensive weapon here very badly. I got to agree they go defense. Who specifically they do take, like I said, is kind of a little bit up in the air. But it looks like it's going to be somebody along that defensive line. In particular, an interior defender. I see one where they're taking Christian Barmore. He's an absolute mammoth of a defensive tackle out of Alabama, and another one where they have Levi Onwuzurike, Washington defensive tackle. I'm just going to say that they take the guy out of Alabama just because Alabama guys tend to go a little bit higher. I can't say that I know a ton about each one of these guys to compare them and say which one's better. I'm just going to say for the sake of one being out of Alabama that's who they're going to be taking.
All right, Garth, we have Christian Barmore from the University of Alabama, a defensive lineman, going to the Cleveland Browns on a defensive line that is already pretty solid. Number 26, or number, what are we at, 26, 27? 27, Garth.
Yep.
The Baltimore Ravens.
Now, here is a team, as we mentioned earlier on, who needs weapons for Lamar Jackson badly. The defense, by no means, is great, but they're not terrible either. And I feel like them improving their defense isn't going to win them that division. I feel like they're going to place a little bit more importance on the offensive side of the ball. Getting Lamar back to kind of those MVP numbers where they did have so much success in the past, with their playoff appearance where they did lose to my Chargers, I will add. But I feel like they've got to, address the offense. They've got to get some more weapons in there for him. I believe we said that our best available wide receiver right now is Rondale Moore. Is that who we have?
Yes, Rondale Moore is the best wide receiver left. And I think
with that being the case, I say they have, because I've been saying through and through they go wide receiver here. With him being the best available, I will say Rondale Moore, no doubt, here to the Baltimore Ravens.
All right, Garth, we have Rondale Moore from the University of Purdue, wide receiver, going to the Baltimore Ravens, another weapon for Lamar Jackson. Number 28, my least favorite team in the league, probably the New Orleans Saints, Garth.
Yeah, and this one here is, a little bit interesting for me. I feel like with them trying to get under the cap, losing some guys aging, they actually kind of have a lot of needs. And I think that their seasons are going to be very interesting because it's really going to come down to, one, how much of an impact these holes they do have on the roster, is how well do they draft, how much of an impact do who they draft have in this first season, and first and foremost, how does the quarterback play, as Drew Brees will no longer be under center. So this is a really big season for them, and it's going to be up in the air. I can't really speculate on it too much as of right now. But what I'm seeing is that they are going to address the defensive side of the ball. It does look like the common theme here is that they're for sure going to be taking a linebacker with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah off the board. I do feel like they're going to have to take Jermaine Davis, linebacker out of Kentucky. This is another guy who is an upperclassman and junior. He started all 3 seasons. He's kind of quietly just had a very solid year after year performance. Big guy. He can defend both in the run and the pass. I feel like they got to go linebacker here and help shore up, what is kind of an aging, under-talented group there.
Garth, so number 28, Jamin Davis, linebacker from the University of Kentucky. That means that the top linebacker left is Zaven Collins from Tulsa. Number 29, Garth, a team that you obviously follow a lot because of the quarterback, the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, and here's once again another really, really interesting pick. If Kadarius Toney were still on my board, I would say absolutely he goes right here, end of conversation. But he is off our board. Another team that I could see going either side of the ball. I know a lot of Packers fans are saying, hey, go all out on the offensive side of the ball. Well, we still got Aaron Rodgers so that we can try and get back to the Super Bowl and win another one. And I know some Packers fans who say the complete opposite. Hey, we got to get the rest of this team really good. Aaron Rodgers only has a few seasons left. With that being said, because Kadarius Toney is off the board, All of our, what I would say our first round wide receivers are off the board. I think that they're going to go with the guy that you just mentioned, Zaven Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa.
All right, I'll just get him down, Garth. Now, we still have a few good defenders out there. We still have Asante Samuel Jr. out of FSU and J.C. Horn from South Carolina. But we'll go ahead and put down Davis, or Collins from the University of Tulsa. Garth, number 30 is the Buffalo Bills, a team that you and I are both very fond of here. Who are they taking, Garth?
Yeah, as you said, a team that we both like. Our friend Mikey's, this is his favorite team. They are a team that's looking to add to the defensive side of the ball. I feel like their offense is pretty set as far as they don't need to draft somebody in the first round for an offensive weapon, at least this late back, maybe if they traded up. But yeah, I feel like they're going to go defense. They're going to add to a secondary unit that is very good but could use some depth. And I would say Asante Samuel here, like one mock draft has. But as you mentioned, we still do have J.C. Horn on our board. And I feel like, he can't fall any further. They're going to be taking him because he is available still.
All right, so we're going with J.C. Horn, the cornerback out of the University of South Carolina. And number 31, Garth, the trade that just happened today between the Ravens and Chiefs, we have the Baltimore Ravens sneaking in at number 31 at the end of the first round. Earlier, we had them taking, let me see who it is real quick. Oh, that's right. Did we have them taking? I'm skipping over them, Garth. I think they already had a pick, we
did have them. We had them at 27, just a few picks ago.
Okay, my bad. Yeah, we had them taking. Let me see. Rondell Moore. So who did they take in second, Garth, for this second pick?
Yeah, so I think that we're going to see them try and fill that hole that they just traded away in Orlando Brown. They're going to be looking to add an offensive lineman, as they did get their first round wide receiver just a few picks before this. One mock draft I hear has them taking Alex Leatherwood. As we said, he is off our board, so he will not be available. But I still think that they do address the offensive line. I'm going to go that they take another Alabama guy is going to be coming off the board in the first round. I like them taking Landon Dickerson, offensive line, University of Alabama.
All right, so number 31 to the Baltimore Ravens, they will take Rondell Moore from Purdue first, and they will take Landon Dickerson, offensive lineman from Alabama. And finally, Garth, we have the Super Bowl champions, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Aldridge's favorite team. I'll just talk about this one real quick because I think that, the thing is, Garth, they have so many things they could use. Obviously, they don't need a lot because, they just won the Super Bowl. To me, I'm going to go a bit off the record here. I can see a lot of people saying that they might take a defender or something, maybe even take a wide receiver. To me, when I look at their team, I think they have a decent running back by committee. Obviously, they re-signed Leonard Fournette. But can you imagine, Garth, what their offense would be like with those wide receivers they have? Their defense is pretty good. If they could get a guy like a Najee Harris or a Travis Etienne into that offense, Garth, I think that would be a really good pick for them. Not just to have, obviously Tom Brady throwing to some great wide receivers, but to have a young running back for the future that can pound it up the middle, is explosive. I think that you actually might see a running back sneak into the end of the first round here, Garth.
Yeah, and I got to agree here, Noah. With what's left on our board, like you said, they very well could take a defender, but I think with what's available, they're going to take potentially their future at the running back position, whether it be Najee Harris or Travis Etienne. I could see either one of them going here. I'm a big fan of both guys. I really like what both of them bring to the table. I don't know if they have a preference one over the other. I think that they'd be happy with either guy. As I said, either guy would be a great pickup by them. I'm going to say that just for sake of being maybe what's not as expected, I'm going to say Travis Etienne, University of Clemson.
All right, so to wrap it up, we have Travis Etienne, running back from the University of Clemson, and that's it, Garth. That's the first round completely mocked. We'll review it in a second, but that was a lot of fun, man. That took a while, but I think we did a great job right there.
Yeah, and I think that at least for me personally, I kind of gained a little bit of perspective and a little bit of appreciation for these guys who are putting out mock drafts, what seems like every day as things change and, guys move up and down draft boards and trades happen, to put together a good list. I feel like we give a lot of criticism to mock drafts. We kind of say, oh, no, that's not going to happen. What are you thinking? But, just doing that there with you now, Noah, it gives me a little bit of appreciation, a little bit more respect for, them putting these lists together to the best of their ability. I had a blast. What's going to be really cool to see is how far off or how close we are on all these picks. If we get one of those more controversial ones or different, not following status quo, if we get one of those right, I feel like that'll be a really cool feeling that we, predicted that. So, now I'm even more excited for the draft next week.
I agree, Garth. And, obviously we went off the cosh for a lot of these picks. It's not a standard mock draft, but, the draft never is standard. What is predicted isn't going to happen. I think that's interesting. Just before I go over the list of who we've taken to recap real quick, just want to point out some guys that we did not take in the first round who have pretty decent projections. We have Trayvon Moehrig, the safety out of TCU. CBS Sports has at number 17. Aziz Ojulari, as you said, from the University of Georgia, edge rusher. He's at number 18. Other than that, most of the guys I'd say we haven't picked are, kind of fringe, late first round, second round prospects. But are you ready, Garth? Should I start going over this list?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do our recap, Noah.
All right, Garth. So number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars take Trevor Lawrence, quarterback out of Clemson. New York Jets at number 2, Zach Wilson from BYU. San Francisco 49ers take Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama. My Atlanta Falcons at number 4 take Kyle Pitts, a tight end out of Florida. The Cincinnati Bengals at number 5, Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle from Oregon. The Miami Dolphins at number 6 take Jalen Waddle, our first controversial pick, wide receiver, University of Alabama. The Denver Broncos have traded up to number 7 from the Detroit Lions to take Jamar Chase, the wide receiver out of LSU. At number 8, the Carolina Panthers, they get a nice guy in the offensive line for whoever their quarterback's going to be. Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle out of Northwestern. Detroit Lions, after trading down, they take Micah Parsons, the linebacker from Penn State. Dallas Cowboys go for a nice flashy pick in Patrick Surtain II, quarterback from Alabama. The New York Giants, Kwity Paye, the edge rusher from Michigan. The Philadelphia Eagles at number 12, after trading down, I believe it was, take Devontae Smith, wide receiver from the University of Alabama. The Los Angeles Chargers, your team, Garth, take Christian Darrisaw, the lineman from Virginia Tech. The Minnesota Vikings fought with another offensive lineman from USC, Elijah Vera Tucker. At number 15, the New England Patriots take a guy you're very fond of, it seems, Rashad Bateman, the wide receiver from Minnesota. The Arizona Cardinals take Greg Newsome, a cornerback from Northwestern. At number 17, Los Angeles Rams take take Alex Weatherwood, the offensive tackle from Alabama. Number 18, the Miami Dolphins take Jalen Phillips, a defensive end from Miami. At number 19, one of our most controversial pick, Garth, and we'll see if this happens. Number 19, Washington football team takes Justin Fields, quarterback from Ohio State, followed by another quarterback to the Chicago Bears, Trey Lance from North Dakota State. Listen, a lot of names, Garth. It is tough. Number 21, the Indianapolis Colts take Gregory Rousseau, another edge rusher from the University of Miami. Number 22, Tennessee Titans take Caleb Farley, who slipped a lot in this draft, the cornerback to Virginia Tech. The New York Jets at number 23, they follow up their Zach Wilson pick by taking Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker from Notre Dame. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they shore up that offensive line that needs some help. Tevin Jenkins, Oklahoma State tackle. Number 25, the Jacksonville Jaguars take your guy to link with Urban Meyer, Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from the University of Florida. Number 26, the Cleveland Browns take Christian Barmore, defensive lineman from Alabama. Number 27, Baltimore Ravens take Rondell Moore, a wide receiver from Purdue. At number 28 and 29, we have two linebackers going. One to the New Orleans Saints at 28, Jamin Davis from the University of Kentucky. Zaven Collins from Tulsa to Green Bay Packers at 29. At number 30, we have the Buffalo Bills taking J.C. Horn, cornerback from South Carolina. Number 31, the Baltimore Ravens take Landon Dickerson, yet another offensive tackle from the University of Alabama. And at number 32, Garth, the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers take Travis Etienne, the running back from Clemson. What'd you think of that, Garth?
Yeah, overall, honestly, I like our list a lot, Noah. I will say, probably if I made any adjustments to it, which I personally don't have a ton, I would probably swap JC Horn and that defensive back out of Northwestern just because realistically, I don't see Horn falling that low. And I definitely feel like the Bills will still take a DB. He just, might not be available, but it's just how our list worked out. But really, that's the only thing that jumps right out to me as like, hey, I would probably change that. Other than that, I like our list. I think that we did a good job of not just, sticking exactly to the experts mock drafts, and we had some good controversy, some good change that's realistic. I don't feel like we had any picks that were absolutely absurd. Um, overall, I liked our list. Like I said, I'm really excited to see if we hit any of those more controversial picks on the head, and just overall how close we were to what actually goes down in the draft.
Yeah, I agree, Garth. And that's the thing. The draft, a lot of people try to predict it. Some of it is pretty obvious, like the top three or so, I think are fairly standard. Um, but there's always a surprise, Garth. I remember last year the Raiders took a cornerback named Damon Arnett. He was projected to be like a third round pick. There's going to be something like that. Someone's going to go way higher than expected. Someone is going to drop. I know we have guys like Justin Fields, Caleb Farley, and I believe the other guy J.C. Horn, if they dropped in our draft, you had to get some guys, maybe like Alex Weatherwood, Greg Newsom, who went higher than you'd expect, Rashad Bateman. But that's the thing about it, Garth. It's unpredictable. There's going to be crazy trades. We only had one trade in this mock draft between the Broncos and the Lions. But there's going to be some crazy trades as well, Garth. That's the thing. It's going to be very exciting. That's why we love the draft. Some of it is predictable, but a lot of it is just absolute mayhem. It's going to be awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's always really exciting to see if, one player that you never thought your team would have a shot at does fall, or, if you trade up to see who your team goes after. But like you said, there's always outliers. There's always some difference from the norm that happens in these drafts. I know it firsthand. Somehow Derwin James fell to us. Nobody expected that to happen at all, and we got blessed. Should he remain healthy, he already shown, just how good he can be as a rookie. But yeah, like you said, Noah, the first 2, 3 picks in this draft are pretty locked in, especially number one, obviously with Trevor Lawrence. But the rest of it, I feel like we can see, just about anything happen. As you said, we only had one trade in ours. All these draft analysts, these mock drafters, this is like one of the first years ever that they have predicted so many trades. I know Mel Kiper personally, this is the first season that he's predicted any trades at all. Not that they don't happen. He just personally doesn't like to predict them. So I just feel like overall we're in for a really, really exciting draft this year. And hopefully both, my Chargers and your Falcons can really benefit from this draft.
I agree, Garth. We're in some great positions to take potentially very high impact players for our teams. And, like you said, I mean, predicting trades is so hard to do. No one's ever going to get the trades to predict right because they're so crazy. The fact Mel Kiper's even done it is pretty insane. I'm kind of like him as well. I don't really like predicting trades, and we still even predicted one. So this is going to be a very crazy, unpredictable draft. And, it's only less than a week away. I can't wait, Garth. I really can't.
Yeah, and with that said, Noah, one thing that I want to let all of you guys know before we wrap up our draft special here tonight is to be keep an eye out for the Sports Box this coming week. They always, always, always have a fun time with the draft. They put on an incredible draft special, which we don't. I personally don't have an exact time except for Friday night around the same time we go live on here, as we will not be live due to the draft special. Me and Noah are both going to be looking to hop on there with those guys and assess what's happened so far in the draft, and give live draft coverage. So as you guys know, you probably are going to have ESPN on your TV. Be sure to put us on your phone, tablet, laptop, whatever else that you keep on you while watching the draft, because we're going to be, not only me and Noah, but all Sports Box going to be looking to provide you guys some A+ draft coverage next week.
Yeah, I'm looking to be there on Friday. Garth, are you going to be on Friday as well?
Yes, I'll for sure be on Friday. I'm going to try and make one of the other broadcasts. I won't know for sure. It's just hard with my schedule to do weekdays other than Fridays. But, I'm for sure Friday, guys, me and Noah both. And then you'll potentially see both of us again on one of the other nights.
Yeah, so I'll definitely be there for Friday, which is day 2 of the NFL draft. I'll try to be there for Wednesday or whatever they said. And I'll also try not to forget this time to be there. So there you go.
Yeah, most definitely. And definitely keep that list, Noah, so we can kind of go through and see just how bad or good we did. But, we had a heck of a show tonight, Noah. I feel like we did a really good job. Easily our longest show yet as we're closing in on that 2-hour mark. I want to thank, obviously everybody that joined in, everybody that watched us, obviously Noah for spending, almost 2 hours with me here talking. And just imagine, guys, we just barely got through the first round. Imagine you're going through all 7. Yeah, just thank you, Noah, for being here. Thank you guys for tuning in. And like I said, be sure to tune into the Sports Box next week to help you with your draft coverage.
No problem, man. I loved it as usual. And like you said, not only just the first round, Garth. Imagine these guys that are trying to freaking mock, 7 entire rounds. I mean, got to tip your cap to those guys, Garth. They really deserve some respect for doing that. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic. That was a lot of fun to do.
Yeah, like I said, no, definitely gained some perspective, definitely gained some respect for those guys. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up here, Noah. Thank you guys yet again for joining us tonight. Unfortunately, I believe Noah has the same kind of situation as me. We got to get ourselves to bed, get some rest. We got a big day ahead of us. Real quickly, make sure you guys catch Supercross Saturday night. Is there a race this Sunday, Formula One, Noah?
Nope, Garth. We have a week off.
Okay, I did believe so. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't forgetting to let these guys know. But yeah, so definitely, tune into Supercross, guys. I know one other thing that's really, really cool. It just sucks that it's pay-per-view only. They are racing dirt cars at Bristol this weekend, so that's pretty cool. If that's up your alley. Like I said, though, it is unfortunately only on pay-per-view. But baseball is heating up, basketball is heating up. Even though we're still a week out from the draft, we do have some great sports going on this weekend.
Absolutely, man. Everyone enjoy it. Get ready for the draft. And most of all, thank you guys for watching the Sports Box with us. Really fun to do this mock draft. And we'll see you next time when we're on Friday night for day 2 of the NFL draft.
See you guys next Friday night, Sports Box. Don't forget it. Your best draft coverage on all of Facebook. Peace out, guys. Have a great weekend. Enjoy some sports.
Thank you for watching this episode of Sweet Tea on the Sports Box. Please remember to follow us on all of our social media outlets. On Facebook at Sportsbox Show, Twitter at Sportsbox Show, Instagram at The Sportsbox Show. Find us on YouTube and join Outside the Box, our Facebook sports discussion group. The Sports Box is brought to you by our sponsor, Showcase Sports in Hammonton. Showcase Sports for the elite athlete. And also our friends over at CrowdPlay. Download the free CrowdPlay app today and use promo code THEBOX at sign up for 10 free points. Thank you for joining us.